Good day, dear learners. I welcome you in this new session in which I'll be talking about education in India. So, we'll be looking into the Gurukulam, temples, Vihars, the Madrasas, and the Khanqahs. So, first, let's have a look at the overview of this session. The first part of the session, you will be able to understand how the whole historical evolution of education in India took place through Gurukul system, through temples, through Viharas, Madrasa, and Khanqahs. Then you will be also able to identify the aims, the curriculum, the teaching method used in the different traditional educational institution. And lastly, it will help you to evaluate the relevance of the traditional education system in the contemporary um, learning scenario, right? So let's begin. Now, if you look at the whole Indian concept of education, so education is a lifelong process, it's a continuous process. Now, in the very famous quote, education is a treasure that can never be robbed. It is a pleasure that can never be possessed. So, education is the greatest wealth one can attain in this world, and it is the necessity in today's world. It is the wealth that gives satisfaction and saves us from destruction. So you see, the whole process of education is modification of behavior. It's a tripolar process where a teacher, the taught, and the social environment, they're coming together and they interact with one another. And they also, you can say, it is both theoretical and practical in nature. Then, if you look into the etymological meaning of education, so the etymological meaning of education is stemming on from three Latin words: educare, that means to nourish, to raise; educare, that means to draw out, to lead out; educatum is the act of teaching or training. So, education means nourishing the good qualities in an individual and drawing out the best in every individual. So, in this figure, you can see the pedagogy, which is the science of instruction to lead the students. Shiksha, a very common word, it's a Sanskrit word which means to discipline, to control, to instruct. Vidya is also another Sanskrit word which means to know. So, in the view regarding education, what do the other Indian thinkers, they have given the different views of education. So, right from Rig Veda, you can till Upanishad and Panini, the Kautilya, and then Swami Vivekananda, you can see that it's talking about how education is making man self-reliant. It is it's end product of salvation. It is the training of the different senses and training for the country and love for the nation. In other words, education is character information in the process of formation, right? And the strength of mind is increased and the intellect is expanded. So different people have different views, but it is boiling down to the same thing, that is realization of self, all round, bringing out or drawing out of the inner, the best in every child, the innate quality, searching for the ultimate truth. It is, and you can say it is to live for the divine, for the country, for oneself. So take a pause and look at all the different thinkers who talked about education and how they defined education. And the common tenets and the common attributes of education will be very common when you go through them. So, if you look at the broader meaning, so education is a lifelong process. It's a cumulative effect of various experiences which are received by an individual in his home, outside his home, school, outside his schools, and any workplace, and so on. All that is basically there. So, very interestingly, Lodge has said that all experience are said to be education. Even if you get a bite from a mosquito or a taste of a watermelon, the experience of falling in love, or flying in an aeroplane, or being caught in a storm, even a small boat experience, whatever broadens our horizon, whatever is deepening our insight, refining our actions and reactions, and stimulating thought and feeling, all that is basically educating us, right? Now let's straight away go to the ancient time. How did the Gurukul system of education evolve? So, Gurukul is a type of a residential schooling system in which there was a shiksha, the student, acharya, guru with the teachers. And here, the shiksha, they helped the guru in their day to day work. They learned from the life, from the conduct and the lifestyle of the gurus. So, this was basically in the Vedic and Mahabharata period. And this is an indigenous education system of the Indian subcontinent. So it was also used to impart the religious as well as the secular teaching in India. So the teaching was usually imparted through oral traditions. The system was kept alive with the help of Guru Shikshak tradition. Then slowly these Gurukulas took an institutionalized form and the system started functioning to impart knowledge of every kind. So if you look at the origination, just like I said, it started in the Vedic period, the Gurukula, Guru meaning the teacher, Kula meaning the family or the home. And there was a very close-knit relationship between the teacher and student. There was a sense of learning and it was a part of the family structure. So the primary aim was not only to impart academic knowledge, but to nurture the whole person, their mind, body, and spirit. So, mind was intellectual growth. That means a child should learn to think critically. Body meaning it included yoga, martial art, and physical labor. Spirit meaning meditation, prayer, and rituals. So, if you look at the structure of Gurukula system, they had ethics, which was the moral foundation of students, which needs to be developed through teaching based on honesty, integrity, compassion, and respect for all living beings. Vedas, that is the study of Vedas, the hymns, the ritual, the cosmology, and the philosophical aspect contained within these texts. Then, of course, they had sciences also as a subject, mathematics, astronomy, architecture, and medicine. Arts was also there, the music, the literature, and other creative forms which formed a very integral part of their curriculum and helped them to cultivate a sense of artistic expression and cultural awareness. So the whole Gurukulas were highly personalized and they had experiential form of teaching. So the first was the Guru Shiksha dialogue that they had through questioning method, question answering method, experiential learning that the students learned through doing, learned by doing, and they did all the practical experiment in the scientific subjects. Then also storytelling and parables. The moral stories were taught through storytelling, and all that was depicted from the stories were and the parables were extracted from the ancient text. So if you look at the key features of Gurukul system, first was the residential learning and how they were disciplined and they were allowed 24/7. They were immersed in that learning environment. And it was focusing on their discipline and detachment from any material distraction. Then comes to moral and ethical education, how practicing truth, non-violence, duty, compassion, and humility, that all was taught through daily behavior, daily routine, through storytelling and observation of the Guru's life. Then one-to-one mentor, how the Guru Shikshak Association was the keystone of Gurukul system. And this is what now we are also following, the mentor-mentee relationship, right? Then practical learning and life skill, that it truly emphasized the hand-on experience, practical task, and daily responsibility. Then it was also community and nature-centric living, how it focused on natural, forested surrounding, which nurtured on intelligence of calm and mindfulness, right? So if you compare the Gurukul system with the modern system, you can see in the table. Take a pause, just look at it, how the teacher student ratio varied, what was the teaching style, their curriculum, their learning environment, and what they focused on. Now, moving forward to temples. Now, temple was not just a place of divine connection, but a space that nurtured intellectual as well as cultural and spiritual growth. So, it was a focal point for education and cultural preservation as well, where religion teaching and traditional knowledge were imparted. Further, temples also played a very key role in safeguarding India's diverse cultural heritage through their association with, art, literature, music, dance, and rituals. And it fostered what we call as a community involvement. That we feeling was there. So all the cultural activities that took within the temple, it was a means for social cohesion, for connecting individuals from different strata of the society. So historically, the role of temple was always there in education system. We saw even in the Gurukula system and the temples, it was a repositories of knowledge and preserving sacred text. And moreover, it also was instrumental in spreading the Vedic education and Sanskrit, the language of scripture, as well as they were also preserving and transmitting of knowledge and making it a vital center for spiritual and intellectual development in ancient India. Then role of temples in India, it facilitated a variety of academic and intellectual activities. They were running schools, they also had libraries, and they used to conduct cultural programs and also different educational programs. So different temple education centers, like we have the Kanchipuram, which was also referred as the city of thousand temples. We have the Mahakaleshwar temple in Ujjain, which was associated with the center of advanced learning, especially in astronomy, mathematics, and philosophy. So here the temple, it served not only as a spiritual center, but also as a place where astronomical observation and calculations were carried out. The Brihadeshwar temple, which was built around in the reign of Raja Chola I, this was also not only an architectural marvel, but a vibrant center of education and the art. And here the teachers, scholars, musicians, students, they were maintained by the temple through royal grants. Then Jagannath Temple in Puri, this was another center of learning and culture. It attracted scholars from Vedic studies, rituals, Sanskrit grammar, theology, and so on. Even in Kerala, there were different temples which became the center of Sanskrit learning, astrology, Ayurveda, and classical arts as well. So Kerala's temples, they played a vital role in nurturing Kathakali, Carnatic music, and traditional architecture, thus blending an intellectual learning with cultural expression. Then there were temples in Hampi also, which flourished during that time, which became a major center for education and culture. Subjects such as Hindu philosophy, Sanskrit literature, music, and sculptures were taught within the temple complexes also. Now coming to Viharas, which is another significant center of education in ancient India, which was particularly popular during the Buddhist period. So Vihara, which means monastery and abode, and it refers to the residential institution of Buddhist monk. So they served as a place where monk lived, studied, taught Buddhist philosophy, ethics, and various branches of knowledge. So if you look at the education environment in Viharas, it was deeply influenced by Buddhist ideals of discipline, morality, and wisdom. So the curriculum included the study of Tripitaka, that is the Buddhist scriptures, the logic, grammar, medicine, astronomy, and philosophy. So some of the most renowned viharas were Nalanda, you have Vikramshila, and Sompura and Jagata. So we do find that these particular viharas also became or not only housed thousands of monks and teachers and students, they were also offering education of Buddhist philosophy, metaphysics, mathematics, logic, and medicine. Then coming to the curriculum, teachers and methods of teaching in Viharas, the curriculum here was very broad, it was very comprehensive, and it focused on spiritual and secular learning. Similarly, the teachers, which were also known as acharyas or upadhyayas, they were respected monks, which were known for their deep scholarship, and they had a very disciplined life. And the relationship between a teacher and student was based on respect, it was based on personal guidance, much like the tradition of Guru and the Shikshan system. The method of teaching was, of course, primarily oral. They had recitation, they had memorization, and the explanation of sacred text as well. So there were a lot of debates and discussion, question answer sessions, which were formed a very important part of the learning. So here are some images of some very renowned viharas at that time. You can see the image of Nalanda. You can see the another image from Vikramshila, which was also a Buddhist learning center. Then we had Odantapuri, which was a Buddhist university in Bihar. Now, just look at the different kind of, the architecture at that time that was present at that time. Then this was another, you can say, in Somapura, Mahaviharas, which was built in Dharampala in the 8th century. And this was attracted a lot of scholars from Tibet, China, and Southeast Asia. Now, coming to the madrasas. Now, madrasas education in India was also related to the traditional Indian, you can say, the Islamic education institution. And of course, they were teaching Islamic theology, jurisprudence, the language, which was particularly Arabic, and sometimes other subjects. So, the word madrasa means school in Arabic, and also it dates back to the medieval period, which has also evolved to incorporate various reforms in their curriculum. Now, if you look at the Islamic culture, the education system, it included the Quran, the Hadith, the fiqh, and the Arabic language. So the type of madrasas, we have the maktabs, which was the elementary type of education where the young children, they used to study. So basically the focus was on literary skills, reading, writing, and arithmetic. Then came the madrasa, which was the secondary and the senior secondary education. So here, of course, it became more structured, more advanced. They studied Islamic jurisprudence, that is fiqh, hadith, and tafsir, that is the interpretation of the Quran. But of course, secular subjects were also taught like mathematics, science, history, language, and they prepared the students for the board exams and for further studies. Then there was also Darul Uloom, which was for higher education in Uttar Pradesh. This was a very famous, which is influenced by Islamic education across South Asia. So these institutions, they preserve classical Islamic teaching while gradually integrating elements of modern subjects and modern thought and education as well. So if you look into the whole madrasa education system, the aims of madrasa education was that they were teaching the basic knowledge of Islam and the tenets of the Islamic faith. And of course comes the, needless to say, the sunnah, the teaching and the tradition of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in everyday life. The curriculum was of course based on the fresh curriculum which was made by Dars-e-Nizami, that is the syllabus of Nizami of Muhammad Shalvi. He prepared this curriculum, which is till today in the present scenario, this system of education, they are practicing this curriculum. And here, even in this other madrasa, many of the madrasa, they are also having some different curriculum also. And the thing is that there is still, we find that there is a lack of uniformity in subjects and books that are being taught in madrasas. Then the teachers and student of madrasa, the madrasas are catering to the educational needs of Muslim children. Most of the students in the madrasas, they come from very poor families or very humble families, and they cannot afford to pay for the education and the boarding fees of their children. So here the teachers in madrasas are usually the product of the madrasas themselves, and most of them are unfortunately professionally untrained because there is no such provision of training and internship for them. So they are unaware of the techniques being used in the teaching process and have no access to modern methodology of teaching and learning. Then coming to Khanqahs, which is another very significant, you can say, institution in medieval period. And this is derived from a Persian word Khanqah, meaning lodge of the monasteries. So unlike Madrasa, which focused on the formal education, Khanqahs basically emphasized the spiritual and moral development. So it was led by the Sufi master, which was a peer or a sheikh. And here the teaching focused on self-discipline, humility, love for humanity, and remembrance of God in the form of zikr. So the Khanqahs were open for everyone, and they became a very powerful center of inclusivity and social reforms. So the prominent Khanqah in India are from very respected Sufi saints like Khwaja Moinuddin Chishti in Ajmer, Nizamuddin Aulia in Delhi, and Baba Faridi in Pakpatan. And they all contributed to the moral, the cultural education of society, bridging gap between people of different faith and background. So if we look into the detail, what was the education in Khanqa, what was the aim? So the ultimate aim was, of course, to cultivate inner peace, ethical conduct, and love for humanity. And Khanqahs, they emphasize a service, that is khidmat or compassion. And the curriculum was, of was basically they were taught divine love, self-discipline, and meditation, and the moral values they were drawn from Quran, Hadith, and Sufi literature. And poetry, music, especially sama, that is spiritual singing, were also used to inspire devotion and reflection. So ultimately, it was how you're basically understanding God, how you're serving humanity, as well as controlling one's ego, that is nafs. Method of teaching, that is the peer or the sheikh, the spiritual leader, they instructed his murid, which is disciple, through examples like conversations, through meditation and moral training. There was also reflection, there was also self-evaluation and obedience to the spiritual guide, which were central to this particular process. So we find the emphasis was on transformation of character, devotion to God, and service to others, and forming the spiritual you can say backbone of Sufi education in India. So, to conclude, if you look into the whole education in India, it evolved through diverse traditions spanning the spiritual discipline of Gurukulas, the cultural richness of temples, the scholarly rigor of Viharas, the theological depth of Madrasa, and the moral guidance of Khanqahs. And together, all this reflected India's enduring commitment to learning as a lifelong, value based pursuit that integrate ethics, knowledge, and social responsibility. So, if we looked into all that, all the ancient institution, what did they do? They not only preserved and transmitted knowledge, but they also shaped the entire India's composite culture by promoting harmony, discipline, and social welfare. Thus, we can conclude that the traditional system of education in India continue to inspire our modern pedagogical approaches that seek to balance academic excellence with moral and spiritual values as well, right? So this is the suggested reading that you can go through if you want to have more detailed view regarding the ancient education system, how they evolved, what were the basic tenets, their aims of teaching, the curriculum, and so on, right? And these are another web links which help to make this particular slide. And with this, I've come to the end of this today's session, and I hope you enjoyed this session. So till I meet you again, hopefully, till then, take care of yourself and have a nice day. Bye bye.